delay. So stop your waiting.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Fox 12 Weather Podcast. This is episode 102. Today is the last day of May 31st. It's a Friday. I'm meteorologist Jeff Orgeron, joined by meteorologist Katie Suniga. Hey Katie.
Good morning, gentlemen.
And Chief Meteorologist Mark Nelson. Hey Mark.
Good morning, folks.
Wow, we made it, guys. End of the month.
Boring month.
Boring month, huh?
I
would agree.
Yeah.
Unremarkable.
Kind of a normal month, if you will.
Yeah,
Besides that one record day.
Not much happened. I mean,
hold your horses, Katie. We've got the data coming in a second. No, I'm kidding.
I'm excited.
No, you guys are both right. It was pretty uneventful. And some would say that that's okay, because more weather events means more work for us.
You mean like regular people, not the weather geeks like us, say, oh, this is fine. I can live my life and not have it affected by weather. I mean, When's the last time we had a first alert weather day?
That's true.
I think it was in January.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think we've had one unless we had like part of a day for something.
I feel like we did have one. I think we snuck one in after January, but it was like a very uneventful.
I forget why. Yeah,
and we have had some Cascade ones, right?
It was That's why those were the ones we had. We had some big snows up in the Cascades and whatnot.
Yeah.
End of meteorological spring. Tomorrow begins meteorological summer. And we've got a lot to cover in this podcast. Actually, there's quite a bit going on over the next 10 days in the forecast. So here's kind of an outline of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to go over the stats for the month of May, how the temperatures played out, how the precipitation played out, expectations for the month of June. We do have an incoming atmospheric river, a late season soaker. Late season, for lack of a better term.
Sure.
Early summer soaker. Our first heat wave could be on the way. It's still to be determined, but I think some very warm, if not hot stuff is on the way late next week. I'm sure you both would agree with that, but we'll go over some of the data, and then
I agree.
We'll wrap up the podcast with some viewer photos. We always appreciate everybody sending in their views from their neighborhoods and whatnot. So let me switch over to our presentation here and get the party started. Who doesn't love a good old satellite loop to kick off the podcast here? And frankly, there's not a lot to show on visible satellite imagery. So this was around 9 o'clock when I pulled this visible satellite loop of the Pacific Northwest. We have mainly clear skies out there, some high thin clouds kind of streaming over western Oregon and western Washington. But most of the action is offshore with high pressure building aloft. Yeah,
look at those really thin high clouds. It's amazing. Models did kind of show the hint that there would be some thin high clouds. So you used H clouds few, right? Or no, I guess I did yesterday. Did you keep H clouds few in there?
I added a few more H clouds few to the Excel spreadsheet. That's right.
That's our code.
What do you mean by that, Mark? For our viewers?
So little background. We use a CSV file for entering all our forecast information for our different forecast zones tonight, tomorrow, 7-day, the different day parts, 8 a.m., noon, 2 p.m. And so we have codes for each of the clouds, the little icons you see. Is it going to be sunny or is it going to be sunny with a little thin high cloud over it? And so we have all those codes on our CSV file. So that's how we enter in our data so that then our weather graphics machine recognizes that. So we don't have to go do it manually. And for example, if I have the Metro Tomorrow icon for thin high clouds, H clouds few is the code. I don't want to have to go manually into 4 different graphics and put it in. I can just type it in that CSV file and then it extracts it for the, there you go. Anyway, it makes our work easier, but we have codes for each of our days. And so sometimes I'll even think like, oh, it's an M cloudy shower day.
Yeah.
Is that weird? Yeah.
Shower or showers.
Yeah. M cloudy showers.
I remember the first time I opened that Excel spreadsheet, Brian McMillan was the one that was training me, and I was like, holy moly, this is a lot. It was a little bit daunting. Katie, was that kind of your impression as well when you first saw it?
No, because I'm a spreadsheet girl. So I saw it and I was like, data.
Speaking of data, how about we talk about the month of May?
There it is.
Yeah, fairly uneventful. I mean, there were some things that happened, of course, a little seesawing of the temperatures. But yeah, when we average the highs and lows together, we do have one day left, but when we average the highs and lows together, it was a pretty normal May.
Month.
Month. What I said May. What do you mean?
Oh, I thought you said day.
Oh yeah.
I
May.
gotta get my hearing checked.
It's okay. Sorry.
So
what I
just-
remember, my memories are, well, I was gone for part of it, but that first weekend was incredibly wet, those 255s. And it's like, oh, I hope all of May is not going to be like this. But as I recall, we had that and we already saw that the heat was coming the next week.
kind of like this week.
Yeah, like what we see coming up for next week. Models do really well with approaching heat. I mean,
Yeah.
showing us general pattern changes. I should
Yep.
say general pattern changes. But yeah, it was just kind of up and down.
Yeah, so for the viewers that are listening and not seeing our graphics, which we always suggest, go to our website, go to YouTube, watch it on Fox 12 Now on Fridays, so you can see the graphics we're showing. But the hottest temperatures that we recorded were back on May 10th and May 11th. We went 91 and 90. And our coolest days, we had a few days with highs in the mid-50s. So nothing too unusual in terms of temperatures. And again, when you even it all out or average it all out, it was a pretty normal month.
And remember, last May was our warmest ever. Hot.
That's right. That's right.
So it was a nice little
We had
balance
like
to last
5
May.
days in the 90s, didn't we?
Yeah, that was ridiculous. So this was much more reasonable.
Greg Karich, who is one of our loyal viewers.
Oh, he is.
We were emailing yesterday, and he was
Uh-oh.
like, "Oh, I heard you talking about a possible heat wave." So he walked over and watched the forecast yesterday, and he was like, "We already had a heat wave in the month of May." I said, "Well, you know, we
Italy?
consider a heat wave 3 consecutive days at and above 90 degrees. At least that's Mark's rule." And he wanted you to know, Mark, that he doesn't go by Mark's rule. So
Yeah, Greg is. We should have him on the podcast at
We
some
should
point. We can
have
always
him.
edit it in case he says something he shouldn't. But we have bleeps and stuff. But yeah, he's somebody who's lived in Portland his entire life. He is a classic. Like he should live in Juneau, Alaska, or in Montana. He likes cooler weather, hates hot weather, and hates anything that's above normal. If
Right.
it's above normal, he wants nothing to do with it.
right.
So there you go. We love Greg though. Most of the time.
I think he'd do well in the Cascade foothills where it's a little more drippy. a
Yeah,
little
I don't.
cooler.
Yeah, no, but he lives in the middle of Portland. I've mentioned that.
All right, so here's a look at in recent history, the hottest temperatures we've recorded in the month of May. May doesn't tend to be a very hot month. I mean, we're starting to get that higher sun angle and longer duration of sunshine. But yeah, in recent history, the hottest temperatures have been in the low 90s. The hottest was at least dating back to 2015. Last year, 2023, we had a high temperature of 93. So nothing unusual, nothing too extreme. Although, as Mark pointed out, it was, you said, our warmest May last year.
Yeah,
When you average the highs and lows
excessively
together.
warm and hot. It actually was hot.
So that's a little wrap up of the temperatures. Let's take a look at precipitation. Again, pretty normal month,
Other than May the 4th.
I remember the 4th.
Oh, man.
That Saturday, inside all day. That was a soaker. Wow.
I was on the East Coast for my brother's wedding, and my father-in-law was watching Pepper, our dog, and
Mhm.
he was just texting us like, "It is so wet out here." I felt so bad for the guy. I mean, he lives in San Diego, so it was like brutal for him. Yeah, that was a wet day. May 4th, we recorded almost an inch of rain, 9/10 of an inch of rain, and yeah, we had, let's see, 4, 8, 11 days with measurable rain. So in a typical May, we usually see about 2.5 inches of rain. We came up just shy of that mark. We're not going to get any rain today, so we can assume that 2 44/100ths of an inch of rain will be our final tally for the month of May. So not too bad. And here's a look at recent history for the month of May. We've had a lot of dry Mays as of lately. I think, Mark, you
Only
probably-
one wet one. 2022.
That's right. And yeah, 2020, 2021 were not great fire seasons. 2022 was not a very, well, let me think about this. That wasn't a very eventful fire season, was it?
I don't remember.
West of the Cascades.
Neither was last year.
Right.
I mean,
Even though-
actually, I don't know the acreage for last year, but
It didn't feel like we were that smoky last year.
well,
It was-
smoke-wise, we didn't have any significant smoke
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
I have to look at the numbers. I'm actually at a loss.
It's it's crazy. We talk about this quite often. It's amazing how we tend to forget. Like, we have the short-term weather memory loss, even though we're all meteorologists. It's like there's so much data. It's easy to forget little things like that. But yeah, of course, with
Mhm.
fire season looming, we'll be talking about, recent fire seasons and how things have played out and, that kind of stuff. So, all right. What's next in the podcast? June expectations. June is upon us. We're one day away. And I figured folks would want to know how we typically, how the weather typically plays out in the month of June. So, Katie,
Yeah.
you probably looked at this graphic a few times recently. You want to take it away?
I have, yeah. I always laugh because you guys were talking about Greg. He likes to talk about the difference between meteorological and astronomical beginning and end. He's pretty opinionated about that. So now whenever I see those terms, I actually think of him. But for those of you that don't know that meteorological summer, we break it up like the months, June, July, and August. And then astronomical goes by sun angle and daylight hours. And so for record keeping, we begin it tomorrow, which our average high is 72 on the 1st. And then we end the month on 78. But the astronomical June starts, or astronomical summer, I should say, starts on June 20th. And then we have our 4th driest month. I thought it was interesting because I'm still learning all of these. You know, I've been here for more than a year now, almost a year and a half, but seeing the drop from 2.5 inches in May to just a little more than 1.5 inches of rain in June. And our wettest month, June, we've ever had was back in 2010. It was about 4.25 inches. Mark remembers that.
That was the year where we barely had the green tomato summer. 1983 and 1993 and 2010 was about the same, where you could hardly get tomatoes because it was so wet and cool. And the 2010, I remember we just stayed. July was really cloudy, and I think that was the year we didn't hit 90 till September.
Really?
Oh.
Wow.
Just with lots of onshore flow all through the summer, even after the upper level lows finished in June. Just cool and wet.
Climatologically speaking, okay, really quickly to just review, Katie mentioned we typically pick up 1.5 inches of rain in the month of June on average. But typically, like climatologically speaking, if we do get a lot of rain, it usually happens in the first half of June.
Typically, yeah.
Back half of June, usually we're starting to settle into summer. And speaking of that, June in recent history has featured some very hot conditions. We have to remember June 20th, summer solstice. That's when the sun angle is highest. It's at its strongest. And, we have the most or the longest duration of sunlight, some daylight hours. And so we have, I guess, the best chance at experiencing really hot conditions. Although we tend to experience a temperature lag. So our hottest months usually happen, or our hottest weather usually happens after the summer solstice. It's kind of similar to like sunrise. It takes a little while for the temperatures to start to respond. Even though the sunrise may be at 7 o'clock, we tend to see the temperature rising around 8 o'clock. It's kind of the way that summer plays out.
The high temperature is not at noon typically or 1 p.m. It's typically 4 hours later, 4 or 5 hours later. Hey, while we're on this graphic and that last one, I was going to send a memo, but we could just do it here.
Oh.
Anytime you run into a graphic, folks, I just have to say, anytime you run into the graphic with the little blue bar, we don't use those anymore. Get that out of there.
Was the last, which?
That
there
thing
were
you
several.
see across the bottom right there looks like blue stairs.
Yeah, we don't use those anymore.
For sure.
So we're going to need to, I'm going to send out a nasty memo and say, if I see those again, there's going to be retribution. Just kidding. No, but I was going to send a memo yesterday like, if you see those, get rid of the blue bars.
Okay.
Everybody on the podcast listening, make sure you get rid of the blue bars because that's really critical.
Yeah, our viewers really care about that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
TV weather. Huh.
Katie was in Katie was in the Bend market when this all played out.
I remember because we were watching when that happened.
This was this graphic that we're showing to all of the listeners is about the historic heat that we dealt with in June 2021. Hopefully, we don't have a repeat of that anytime soon. But we ended up just destroying our all-time record high. We went 108 on June 26th rather. Then June 27th, 112, and then June 28th, we hit 116 degrees, just absolutely smashing the all-time record high. And we had record warm nights as well, which made it extremely dangerous for those houseless folks. There's just no way to cool down your bodies. So just incredible heat with that massive heat dome that built over the Pacific Northwest.
I don't remember if I mentioned that you guys were on that call. I think the last time with the Western region call with the gray meteorologist, that guy in Tucson said, the weather person said, I'm still amazed that Portland's record high is 116, all-time high is 116, and Tucson is 117.
Is that crazy or what?
Although I think Tucson's up at 2,000 feet, maybe. Still.
They probably get there more often.
Well,
we do.
Yes, I'm sure they're 105, 110 far more often than us.
Yeah.
true. But in Tucson, also, once they get into the back half of summer, all of a sudden they're dealing with the summer monsoon. It's they have less of a window to hit those
I
extreme
suppose, yeah,
temperatures.
that's right.
All right, let's go ahead and move on.
Well,
Uh,
real quick, it's kind of funny. Mark put up a graphic the other day. So I think it was on his blog. I made it last year, I think, where it showed our high and our low. And he shared that because, the other day, it was Monday, Mark, that we was 100 was the record for the day. And so Mark shared it and somebody's like, oh no, we're going
The
to hit 100.
highest and the lowest for every month, right?
Yeah, and he was like, they were like, oh
Yeah.
no, we're gonna hit 116 in June, and Mark's like, no. He had to bring them back down. I'm
Yeah.
not saying we're gonna get that hot.
That was not a forecast. It was that record, folks. It was that record high for every month and the record low for every month, spread through the whole year. So, yeah, somebody saw that as a forecast. Somehow thought I knew what it was going to do all through June. Hey, I should mention, show note here that I'm running on generator power right now, and I think I put enough fuel in. I think there's plenty in there, but if I suddenly just disappear, then the gas ran out. PGE is doing some work underground here, so I went and started the generator.
Okay.
So.
Duly noted. All right, so June, we're kicking off June tomorrow. There's a lot going on in the metro area. We're going to kick off the morning with the Heart and Stroke Walk. I figured we'd just go over the forecast quickly. Temperatures are probably going to be rising through the 50s and low 60s. We'll have quite a bit of cloud cover out there, but probably some breaks in the clouds as well. So it's going to be a nice morning for the Heart and Stroke Walk. Overall, Mia Villanueva is going to be out there hosting it, I believe.
Oh, she is. I wondered. I knew we had a partnership with them.
Yep.
She did last year too, so she's excited.
Yes, and I did in 2019.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Busy day.
I think people would rather hang out with Mia though than with me. So
she's pretty funny.
She's great. All right,
but
Mark's
Jeff, you're nice too. Just so you know.
Thank you. So Timbers Match is also happening Saturday evening, and then we have the Starlight Parade. Mark, you're going to be out there with Shauna and Riel.
Yep.
And the forecast is holding up, it looks like.
I think so. Yeah, I keep saying, you got rid of the chance for a sprinkle. Man, I'm just covering myself, Jeff. That's why I keep putting that in there.
Actually,
it's because
Camilla got rid of it.
Did she?
Mm-hmm.
Who did?
Camilla.
Oh, Camilla.
She took it out.
Wait, yesterday? No, I used
Wednesday.
it yesterday. No, I had it in there I had it in there yesterday.
I'll explain what happened. I think I uploaded this yesterday because I was working on it yesterday. Yeah. So sorry, folks. There is a chance of a sprinkle out there.
Minute chance, we should point out. But I like to put that in there just because, well, just to cover myself.
Yeah. Well,
it's not going to rain.
Well, and it's not going to get the roads wet or anything like that. I mean,
true.
And temperatures are going to be gradually falling through the 60s. When we have cloudier skies in the evening and nighttime hours, it tends to keep the temperatures a little bit warmer. So
we often have a pretty good breeze because that summertime or that warm season northwest wind is coming up the river. I've been down there a few times, and Shauna will say, "Why is it so windy, Nelson?" And I'm like, well, it's just the usual breeze coming up the river. And she goes, well, why? Anyway, so I was thinking, though, we're switching from the onshore, from the northwest wind to the southerly by the next morning. So I thought, actually, it might be a quieter evening wind-wise than we often get. Could be pretty quiet.
We'll see if your forecast verifies or not.
Well, you better ask Shauna on Monday and see if she complains about the hair blowing around, because that could cause trouble.
Right.
In our job.
I think the big headlines in the forecast right now are the soaker coming in Sunday into Monday, remnants of a tropical system coming in across the Pacific, tapping into an atmospheric river. Atmospheric river, big word. It's been around for a long time, though. But yeah, that's a big part of the forecast, and also the potential for some pretty serious heat late next week, which is still kind of up in the air. So we're going to kind of talk about those parts of the forecast right now. Let's start off with
nice
upper level weather pattern, a little loop here showing the pattern between this weekend and mid next week. So you can see that trough digging in that'll usher in the moisture, and then the ridge starting to build over the western United States. And that ridge is what's going to be responsible for the warm up. But initially, I wanted to talk about this this trough that's going to be digging in. So obviously today we have a weak ridge building overhead. We'll hit about 80 degrees in the metro area. It's going to be sunny. It's going to be great out there. Tomorrow, the ridge starts to slide east, and that's going to allow more clouds to push in. But as Mark talked about, he is guaranteeing dry weather all day Saturday, even through the Starlight Parade. I joke. We might have a sprinkler too out
It's like,
there.
what? What? What are you
The look
talking
on
about?
his face was very confused.
Like, where are you going with this?
Then Sunday, there you go. There's the trough that starts to dig in over the Northeast Pacific Ocean, and that is going to be partly responsible for our wet weather.
There it
and
is.
there's
Ooh, that's juicy.
there's
Yeah.
the juicy atmospheric river that'll be taking aim at Western Washington and Western Oregon. Katie, you sound thrilled.
I love it. I'm sorry. For those of you who aren't excited about rain, so when I went through college, I did a huge research paper on the moisture in the atmosphere and all that's captured up there and all that. So I personally find atmospheric rivers just fascinating. I just love them.
I do too. Atmospheric.
They're
Yeah.
okay.
So really quickly, an atmospheric river, it's a narrow corridor of moist air. It's a fairly common weather pattern that we experience on the West Coast. And it can enhance rainfall rates. There is a classification system or a category system, kind of like hurricanes and tornadoes, but a little bit different. So there's category 1 to 5. Category 1 being the weakest type of an atmospheric river, and then category 5 being the strongest type. They're categorized based off of the duration of the event. So if it's a short event or a long duration event, and also by how much moisture they carry in. So category 5 would be a long duration event bringing a lot of moisture that could bring flooding, debris flows, things like that. They tend to be hazardous. And then the lower end atmospheric river events tend to be more beneficial type of events. And our reservoirs are pretty much full right now. Mark, would you agree to that?
Yeah, actually, I just looked. They're full at their summer level, which does not mean that they're flood control full.
Gotcha. Okay.
So there's plenty of room still, and clearly this is a 1.5 day event, so I don't think we have any concerns.
Right, and we haven't had a lot of rain lately, so it's not like we're coming off of a really soggy period. Therefore, we're not facing a big flood threat. So there are very few concerns related to this atmospheric river, and frankly, considering the time of year, early June, this is going to be pretty beneficial. It'll help to keep our vegetation moist. Fuels will be moist, and that'll keep fire danger low, at least temporarily. So,
and I saw something like a post or something from National Weather Service saying there was like a 5% chance of damage or debris flows or anything. Like they're just saying that risk is really, really low.
Mark, do you have anything to add?
No, I think, again, it's just a day and a half event. I think it's very beneficial. It's great to get a bunch of rain.
Totally.
Briefly, not too long to ruin the local strawberries. I just had local strawberries. They're amazing. Because, 3 or 4 days of that, and they're just mush and gross, and it won't split the cherries out in the Eastern Gorge because it's short lasting. I was laughing because my wife just sent me this note. Is it backwards? It's backwards. It says, electricity is on. Should I switch back? And I'm like, no! Because, momentarily it would go dark and we'd have to start over again. So.
Okay. We'll get through this.
The drama.
Hopefully your generator keeps going throughout the podcast.
I think we're fine.
So this is the higher resolution version of the Euro model, the latest that we pulled in. And it's producing some pretty good rainfall amounts across Western Oregon and Western Washington. So we're probably going to pick up anywhere from 3/4 of an inch of rain to 1.25 inches along the I-5 corridor, ballparking there. Of course, it changes as you cross east of I-5 into the Cascade or toward the Cascade foothills. I bet those areas pick up more like 1 inch to 1.5 inches of rain. The coast could see anywhere from. Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
I was just going to say, on our graphic that we use on air, I have it permanently shifted to the right a little bit, so the driest area is right over I-5.
Yeah, you know what?
Did you know
isn't
that?
Shifted. Yeah, I did notice
This
that.
is probably on the web version, right?
Yeah. No, this is so. I actually had the other Euro model graphic in there, and then last minute I just pulled this one in. I should have double checked.
It is a little bit less. It was showing like 1.4 or something. It has backed off slightly. It tends to be a little wet, I've noticed. Slightly.
The Euro
no.
does.
The Euro.
Yeah,
in the valley, it seems that often it's a little bit wet.
Yeah, I think we were saying
20%.
1/2 inch to 1 inch. I think 3/4 to 1.25 inches, maybe ballpark where we're going to be.
We have a mild disagreement.
Oh, okay.
I give Portland 0.6 out of it. What are you going to go with, Jeff?
What part of Portland?
The airport.
Okay. I think it's
What do you
fair.
think? Give me an airport number.
Are we?
By the time it's over Tuesday morning.
I'm going to go 0.8.
So 0.6, 0.8. Katie?
I haven't looked anything for a couple days because I'm off.
It's the same.
So it's the same.
It looks about the same as it was showing.
Just for kicks and giggles, I'll go more toward the Euro. I'll do like 9
Yeah.
tenths.
9
6,
tenths.
8, 9. Okay, we will
Okay.
see.
All right. The coast.
Moving on.
Yeah, the
Sorry.
coast will pick up a bit
My
more
fault.
than that. I bet the coast ends up with somewhere 1 to 2 inches, depending on if you're in the
Yeah.
Coast Range. Coast Range and Cascades, pockets of the Coast Range and Cascades, western-facing slopes could see 2 to 3 inches of rain. That's very typical in atmospheric-like events. It favors western-facing slopes. So I think those are going to be some
Right.
juicy areas. Is that a good way?
Straight westerly flow. Yeah, really blocks east of the Cascades well.
All right, let's get into the next biggie in the forecast. Are we going to see our first heat wave next week, guys?
I think so. Good chance.
I feel like the Euro has been so consistent, whereas the GFS has been all over the map,
Oh my gosh.
and the Canadian has been leaning into the Euro. I feel like, or toward the
I
Euro.
just checked. Actually, wait. You go through your stuff. I just looked at the 12Z.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This is the
Oh,
forecast upper level pattern depicted by the Euro model, showing higher than normal geopotential heights building over the Pacific Northwest and Western Canada. Quite the ridge if the Euro verifies for early June. Early to
you've
mid-June.
even got the standard deviation graphic. Yeah, the sigma,
That's right.
the normalized anomaly.
Oh, there it is.
So this is
Ooh.
this is the upper level pattern projection from Tuesday late afternoon all the way to Sunday late afternoon next week.
I got to say, right at the end there, we had the 588 closed contour over the middle of the Northwest. That's at the high end of what models have been showing. Like, there's no hint of that on the GFS. Even the Canadian doesn't look quite like that. Even
This
the
is-
Euro, most of the Euro runs haven't had a big closed 588 high over us.
Well, then
I don't think.
I think we should note that this is a deterministic outlook. This
Right.
is not an ensemble outlook, and this is the end of that deterministic outlook. So yeah, take it with a grain of salt toward the end of the loop. But bottom line is there's probably going to be a ridge building somewhere over the western United States. The GFS outlook has been keeping it farther inland and keeping us more in that Goldilocks zone. So that's why it's not showing the possibility of a heat wave in the extended forecast. But I mean, again, as I mentioned, the Euro has been pretty consistent, and this is just the raw temperature outlook from last night's Euro run. And up until about Thursday, we have some fairly pleasant weather. Although Thursday in our 7-day forecast looks a little bit different, which we'll show you in a second. But
Well, because those Euro surface temps, you can add 5 degrees to each of those. I don't think it's going to be 6. Well, I guess it could be 60 Sunday. It's not going to be 61 on Monday.
no, it's
It'll be
not.
about 65, 66.
Having said that, I mean, if this verifies for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, this is showing low to mid 90s. If there's any kind of offshore wind component, I mean, it could get really hot late next week. And remember what next Saturday is.
They have a
Anybody?
Grand Floral Parade.
Although that's a morning event, but yeah, it's still, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people outside.
Ooh.
Yeah, 11 a.m. on pavement. I mean, who would want to be out there at that time on the pavement?
Uh,
11
I'll be
yeah.
there.
Oh, Katie, you got to go entertain the local color. That'll be fun.
Hey,
Oh,
I
the
had
local-
fun last
That'll be
year.
fun. Yep.
Okay, let's get into the ensemble outlook. So this is
keep us on target.
This is the Euro ensemble outlook, and this is kind of showing those 850 millibar temperatures. And I highlighted Thursday through Sunday. Again, this has been the Euro ensembles have been very consistent regarding late next week's forecast. And if we jump into the 20 to 25 degrees Celsius range at 5,000 feet, mixing down, I mean, that could very well mean
100.
highs into the 90s, if not 100 degrees, right?
Yeah.
Especially if there's an offshore wind component, then we're really getting hot. So that's the Euro ensemble outlook. Let's check out the Canadian. This has maybe 1 or 2 afternoons with 850s around 20 degrees C, 15 to 20 degrees C. So not
We
quite
should-
as hot.
Point out the green line is the average of the ensembles. The blue is just the operational run. So the green is a good one to follow.
Right.
It's still blazing hot. A little bit Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but then a quicker drop.
Yep.
Sunday,
And-
Monday, and beyond.
And then the GFS is much cooler
Wow.
because it is depicting the ridge over,
Right.
basically well inland over, I would say, the Great Basin, if you will, as opposed to like over the Pacific Northwest, which would keep us in that onshore flow regime and much cooler. So
That actually really surprises me that the GFS is the one that is lower because when we were originally getting into like this Thursday, Friday, it had the ensemble 850s
All right.
up in the 2025s. And everybody else was down lower to where we actually are.
You're
so
right.
it's been usually the higher ones. That's
It was going for heat at the end of this week about now and Saturday, wasn't it, at one point?
Yeah.
Maybe the main, and also, what was it, 2 weeks ago where the GFS, you know how I love slamming on the GFS. But was it like 2 weeks ago when the GFS was going warm and sunny, and yet the other models are like, no, kind of cool and a little bit showery. And
it's
it was wrong.
been twice in the last month, I think.
So maybe I think the key message here is beware.
Yeah, I mean,
GFS.
there's a lot of uncertainty still, but I made a mental note this morning. I'm like, I can't wait for next week to play out so we can look back and say, oh, that model did really well in its ensembles. Or
I got 12Z. I'm not going to share it, but the 12Z for Thursday afternoon has the GFS as a plus 17 over us, and so does the Canadian.
Okay.
So that's plus 7. So that would be probably 90.
90s.
On Thursday.
Low 90s, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
It's going to be hot.
But then it does have it kind of flattening. The GFS kind of keeps bringing little troughs a little closer to us, so it flattens it, and I notice it's cooler Friday, Saturday.
But I think pattern recognition, the GFS continues to kind of hint at a ridge, right? Like farther west. Is that what?
Yeah, the GFS? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So it's kind of like getting closer to the Euro, if you will. So we'll see. This is our 7-day forecast, just to give you an idea of what we're expecting through Thursday, and expect the temperatures to really start to crank up by next Thursday. Until then, nothing too unexpected aside from the soaker Sunday and Monday.
That'll be good.
Yeah, it will. Let's wrap up this podcast with some viewer photos, shall we? This was a shot sent in by Dennis McNeil. This was actually a sunrise rainbow.
Oh.
Excuse me. So sunrise was obviously happening out of the east. So he was looking to the west. Excuse me, guys.
Oh, get ready to take over. He could be losing it.
Getting over a virus here. Yeah, this was a pretty spectacular rainbow sent in, I think it was late last week. So thanks to Dennis. He captioned it, looking for that spring Chinook pot of gold. So cool shot there. And then we got a couple of shots. This was on Memorial Day. So this was sent in by Gail out of Damascus. This was one of those 22-degree halos, a beautiful shot there with some high thin clouds streaming overhead. And the same halo was observed out in Lincoln City. This was sent in by Eric. He caught a paraglider up there in the sky. So thanks to Eric for sending that in. Best way to send in your photos so that we can show them on the podcast and on air and online is by going to either our news app or our weather app, or going to kptv.com/weather. There's a way to submit the photos, and it gets through the copyright, laws and things like that. And then we can show it to you all on the podcast in various other ways.
I always like to guilt folks on the air. I'll say, you do have our app, don't you? It's on the app, which I'm sure you looked at this morning. That's always a fun thing to say in the evenings. So hopefully people will say, oh yeah, I need to get that app, like Mark says.
Fox 12
I don't know if that
weather
actually works, but that's what I try to do each evening.
And I pop up every now and then when I have a little extra time. I pop up the QR code and step out and be like, "Here."
I forget about that.
Yeah, if you don't, we because I remind people, like, when there's severe weather coming through, if we have thunderstorms, we're on that updating. Not when we're actually on air, so that if something comes up and we're not on, you'll find out about it right away.
Yeah.
There you go. Yep. So easy way to find our weather app. Just search Fox 12 Weather in the App Store, and then you'll get our updates every day. So that about wraps up episode 102 of the Fox 12 Weather Podcast. We always appreciate you joining in, and we'll see how hot it gets next week. I think as the temperatures are cranking up, we're going to be recording our next podcast. So stay tuned for updates, and have a great weekend.
You're waiting and hesitating, and tell us, please tell us about the weather right away. Weatherman, we can't allow any further delay. So stop your waiting.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Fox 12 Weather Podcast. This is episode 102. Today is the last day of May 31st. It's a Friday. I'm meteorologist Jeff Orgeron, joined by meteorologist Katie Suniga. Hey, Katie.
Good morning, gentlemen.
and Chief Meteorologist Mark Nelson. Hey, Mark.
Good morning, folks.